This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit.
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show putting humanities back into science fiction. My name is Gep, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Izix.
Hi.
And this week we watched the thing that the Wikipedia for Star Trek is named after.
Oh yes, some sort of memory of the Alpha sort of stuff here, right?
Yeah, and that's it. Like, we could end the episode here, because that's literally the most interesting thing in the episode.
That's the main contribution to all the Trek canon that this episode provides.
This episode is called Lights of Zetar.
Zetar, guitar, solo. There we go.
Which is, it's also like the most generic-y sci-fi title imaginable.
Like, yes, here's something kind of spooky, and that's it.
Lights of Made-Up Place.
Yes, hamburger of Nothlog. There we go. That's another, equivalent episode title.
Go right to the Trek Continues, people. This episode was written by a husband and wife team, Jeremy Tarcher, who founded a publishing company that focuses on health, beauty, and wellness publications. As far as I can tell, he didn't do a lot of other screenwriting.
There's something about the Sherry Show in the 70s.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
And his wife of the time, Sherry Lewis, who anyone my age will best remember for being the human person on Lamb Chop's Play Along.
Oh, yeah. So that's Sherry. I got it now. This is the song that never ends.
No.
Oh, okay.
I knew we were going to do that. So in addition to her being a talented ventriloquist and puppeteer, she was also a writer and actress who also auditioned to play the starring female character on this episode, but was not cast, unfortunately, because that would have been way more interesting.
She's kind of delightful.
So the guest star that we did get is Jan Schutten, who plays Lieutenant Mira Romaine.
Like noodles?
Or the lettuce. She guest starred on a lot of other shows, including on Andy Griffith, and was in a lot of kind of serial bad movies, including something called Dracula's Dog, which came out in 1978.
Yeah, Dracula's Dog, that's a thing. Yeah. Wow.
And then I can't wait for the gritty reboot, Dracula's Dog, The Return.
And then the sequel, Dracula's Cat.
Is Dracula a cat person?
It's probably spooky cats. Remember Cat's Paw? He has a big spooky castle, so there's got to be a black cat somewhere.
The kids' version, Dracula's Hamster.
The more edgy version, Dracula's Snake.
Dracula's Dog on Blue's Clues. Do you see the blood? Where is it?
I sense something delicious. All right.
Okay.
Back to the episode.
We're trying to salvage some semblance of fun and enjoyment out of this week.
Yeah. Because wow, yes.
I don't know how long this is going to take, because this is a weird nothing happens episode, but they sure take a long time to say it.
It's an episode with tension and not a whole lot else.
Is there tension? I guess there's the thing they call tension, which is staring at nothing while the music tries to be dramatic.
Yes. So, original series tension.
The Enterprise is on its way to Memory Alpha, which is the Federation's library database planet, with the collected knowledge of all Federation member planets all rolled into one giant thingamabob dome.
So that means, all the possible knowledge and histories of all the people and planets of this Federation all been brought here into one centralized location. I hope nothing bad happens to it.
Nothing bad ever happens when you have all the collected works of human history in one library. If science fiction has taught us anything, it always turns out just fine and dandy.
Oh, hi, River Song. Anyway.
They are joined by one Lieutenant Mira Romaine, some kind of specialist who's on board to help them transfer data from the Enterprise library computers to Memory Alpha. She's also got Scotty Thirsty AF.
Yeah, she's like new to space travel, and she's already like wooing veteran space travelers, and Scotty's just getting creepy again. He might be the most competent person on the ship, but whenever he falls in love or has to deal with a lady of any sort, it just falls apart.
Yeah, it's insane. And then literally her intro is Lieutenant Mira Romaine, who's come on board to ba-da-ba-da-ba. Also Scotty horny.
Yep.
There's like, he used to care about the ship, but now there is only the woman.
Yeah, because Kirk will always love the Enterprise. Scotty, he can be wooed away.
So while Scotty's busy being distracted by Mira, Sulu picks up some blinky lights.
Uh-oh.
Outside, not the normal blinky lights that are always on the bridge. Outside, other blinky lights.
As the cat from Red Dwarf would say, it's a blinky thing.
The light things impact the ship, affecting each member of the crew somewhat differently. This is unimportant. It knocks Mira unconscious and zooms into her eyeball. She makes some weird noises, and then, the whole thing disappears and everyone's fine.
Her hard drive is just being scratched up. Don't worry about it.
McCoy comes to look after everyone, and Mira keeps insisting that she's fine until Kirk finally orders her to sickbay. Scotty wants to join her, of course, but Kirk goes, "What are you doing? You have work to do."
Scotty, seriously, we just got hit by a weird space phenomenon. That generally means you should probably, make sure the engines aren't about to explode.
In sickbay, Mira's normal and nothing's going wrong, but she's very ticked off that she's getting a medical checkup, even though, as McCoy points out, she's literally the only person on the ship that passed out, and they should probably figure out why.
Yeah, that would make total sense, Mira. Come on, chill.
Scotty shows up and is able to convince Mira to be a little bit cooperative. It turns out that the reason she's being so weird is because this is her first deep space assignment, and she's worried that any bad medical review will hurt her later career.
Given that everyone else on the ship has been mind controlled or turned into cubes or something like that at some point, I think getting one bad medical review is going to be okay, lady.
I question whether there's anything anyone on this ship could do that would affect their careers negatively.
Yes. So it says here that you are inhabited by an ancient spirit of a proto-Vulcan, and you almost murdered somebody. Cool. Go back to work.
Oh, you did murder someone, but they were unnamed. Okay, cool. That's fine.
That's fine.
Back on the bridge, Sulu has plotted the trajectory of the Blinky Light show, and it's headed straight for Memory Alpha.
Oh no, it's going to be looking up all our Star Trek facts.
Yeah, it didn't do anything to the ship or anyone on board, but they're super, super worried about what it's going to do to the planet.
Well, they raise their shields, I guess, but apparently Memory Alpha doesn't have them. Given that, once again, nothing bad ever happens to the library, they don't have to have shields, I guess.
Their communication is blocked, so they can't warn them, and they're not yet in ranged inner orbit, so they can't get there in time, and they just have to sit there and watch as the lights intersect the planet and then move on.
Oh, so it didn't eat the moon. That's okay. Let's figure out how everybody's doing down there. Do they pass out as well, or what?
Well, Spock now reads no life or no power anywhere on the planet.
Whoops. Well, it's probably going to be dark when we beam down.
Kirk tries to track down Scotty, but he's not at his post because he's still hanging out in sickbay.
Bad, Scotty. Get back to work.
Kirk asks about Mira, who he insists on referring to as the girl through this entire episode.
Come on, man. Seriously?
The only reference that he makes to Scotty not being at his post is snarkily going, well, is McCoy there, or is he in engineering?
I did get a little chuckle about that, but it's sort of this is the best thing in a kind of terrible episode.
I mean, it's fine as snarky humor, but that's the only thing that we're going to say the entire episode about your chief engineer shirking all of his duties.
Yeah. It's a little disappointing.
Apparently Mira's basically fine, so they all have to leave her and go down to the planet to see what's going on. As they leave, Mira's eye sees lights and some dead aliens in her mind, possibly.
Oh no, some random guy and an Andorian over there. Ominous.
They beam down to a really, really bright room that they claim is pitch black. No commentary there, just they beam down to a normally lit room and go oh my god, it's so dark.
Come on, guys, at least try day for night, or night for day, or whatever it is. That one film technique where you just sort of make everything filtered.
Yeah, you could just put the filter. I guess they didn't have access to the filters because they slashed the budget.
So turn off the lights, man. Then you can afford a filter. Wait a moment.
Actually, I've seen them do this in New York. Even scenes shot at night have like giant freaking like street-sized lamps that they put up to make the entire street as bright as daytime, and then they put the filter on anyway.
Filming is so weird.
Yeah. So they find that the computer memory is burnt out, the library is basically destroyed, and in the next room there's a bunch of dead academic aliens.
So, something terrible did happen to the library that we didn't want to figure out any sort of defense for. Who could have thought?
It's also just like what we saw Mira saw.
Yep.
And there's one woman still alive. She's making like weird noises and changing colors.
Yeah, so Mira was making weird noises before, but she wasn't changing colors. She was just making weird noises.
Yeah, but they think that since Mira was making the same weird noises, they should beam her down to see what's going on with this woman.
Okay, yeah, Mira, you're weird. Let's see if you can communicate with this lady or something.
Yeah, they beam her down, go, hey, you were making these noises. She's like, I don't remember this. Why am I here?
That's a good question, actually.
She's pretty understandably freaked out about, everyone being dead.
Yeah. So it's like, well, thanks for bringing me into the newest cemetery and mass grave here on Memory Alpha. Can I go now, please?
She's also gets a premonition that the lights are going to come back and kill them all, but Kirk's like, no, the lights are gone. And then Sulu calls and goes, no, the lights are coming back.
Oh no! Wait a moment. Does she have precognition?
Apparently.
Yeah, I have my doubts about that, actually. Because I think it's more she's just in communication with the spooky lights. And the spooky lights know these things. So
the spooky lights know what the spooky lights are going to do.
It's like, we're going to come back and eat some more people. The lights are coming back. Drat, they're on to us.
Back on the ship, they try to outrun the lights, but they start matching the ship's movements and actively chasing them. So unlikely to be a natural phenomenon.
So, or unless there's like some sort of like, I don't know, magnetic attraction going on here. Like maybe it's drawn to antimatter or, weird acting.
In engineering, Scotty's hanging out with Mira, who is freaked out because she had the earlier premonition of all the dead people and then the premonition of the thing coming back, and now the premonition that they're all going to die anyway.
Oh no! So you basically once again know that what the lights are doing.
Yeah.
They want to kill everybody.
As the lights continue to chase them, matching every single move the ship makes, Spock manages to scan the lights and discovers that it is in fact a life form, or rather 10 distinct life units.
What does that mean?
I don't know. They keep talking about, like, we've discovered a life form of intensity, or we have 10 life units. It's like, what is any of this? What are you measuring life in?
I don't know. The amount of non-decaying DNA, the heartbeats, brainwaves, cellular, energy use. I shrug.
Kirk uncharacteristically decides to try talking to them because, maybe they don't know that they're living things and that contacting them is actually harmful.
Well, that's actually kind of a reasonable thing to be wondering about here because, because they haven't tried to say hello.
So this does not seem to work because there's no response. So Kirk goes back to his good old standby violence.
All right, let's start shooting things.
This does stop the lights for a little bit, but also it knocks out Mira.
Oh no, she is still connected to them, and apparently they're painful now, and she's feeling that pain as well, or I don't know.
Yeah, Scotty calls the bridge to tell them about this, and they basically leap to the conclusion that they can't continue shooting the light blob because they will probably kill Mira in the process.
Mira, do you want to get in a shuttle and go very far away and see if that helps, you not die if we shoot it again?
Kirk basically just orders her cleaned up and brought to the briefing room for some sort of questioning. She doesn't have much of an explanation apart from what we already know, so this whole scene's pretty pointless. McCoy looks into her record and sees nothing unusual except for her having a flexible mind that allows her to learn quickly.
So she's a smarty pan.
They repeat this a lot, except for her flexible, compliant mind.
So she's nimble with the brain waves.
Now comparing her baseline readings from before to the readings that he took now after she was knocked unconscious, he found that her brainwave patterns have changed, which apparently is supposed to be impossible because it's like a fingerprint or retina scan or other identifying doodad.
I don't think that makes any sense.
Yeah. This is back when they first hooked an electrode to someone's brain and went, "Oh my God, squiggles!"
Yep. There's some sort of electromagnetic activity in there. Weird.
Spock recognizes the brainwave pattern as the energy pattern that the lights give off.
Moving in sync.
There's some sort of mind melding happening.
Yes. Hey, Spock, do you want to talk to these aliens via this lady?
Yeah, they didn't even think of that, did they?
No.
So as soon as they finish their meeting, the lights, with their dramatic timing, decide that it's now time to attack again.
Well, maybe the aliens or the lights there or whatever were like, wanted to figure out what happened to the meeting as well, so they were patient. Because it could be very easily a two-way communication going on here.
Now, Kirk has some sort of idea around that, because he's like, well, Mira has a connection, which is our only chance. Don't resist the aliens when they attack. That's our only chance for survival. Get everyone to the medical lab.
Dun-dun-dun-dun, to the medical lab, everyone. And now let your brain be totally taken over by these alien forces. How many of them are there? There are 10 units at least, maybe many more. You could have an entire civilization of evil people that want us all dead now running around your head. So do enjoy your lack of, your lack of yourself as you are slowly destroyed by this hostile invading force.
And the lights pass through the ship, into the medical lab, into Mira. She starts changing color, making weird noises. She's able to maintain some amount of control of herself, but the lights are so strong and soon begin to speak through her for exposition time.
Dun, 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 dun. Exposition time. Let's go.
We like an exposition theme song. They're from Zetar, a planet that was destroyed long, long, long ago, but their will to live was too strong, and they left their planet in search of someone who could let them live again.
So they're basically ghosts trying to inhabit somebody else's body.
Yeah, they're mind parasites or something.
Yeah. It's like the movie Ghost all over again, but in space.
We want to make pottery. There's so many pots that we were unable to make in our lifetime.
But if we get the wheel going now, we can make many, many babies.
Something about Whoopi Goldberg, because I don't really remember that movie. They put Mira in what they call an anti-grav chamber. It's a pressure chamber. It's actually the pressure chamber we remember from Space Seed when they were torturing people to death.
So they're going to torture the lights to death now?
Mm-hmm. They start to increase the pressure in the chamber, going like, it's too dangerous. No, push it more. But it's too dangerous. No, more. I'm pretty sure I saw it read like 30, 40 atmospheres at one point. It's like, she's dead. She's like 100% dead.
Yeah. It's like, okay, if you can sort of keep the pressure in your lungs equalize the pressure outside, that's one thing. But that only helps you for so long when the pressure keeps going up like that. So it's like, oh, now my muscles are being squeezed, and then now there's this massive pressure on my skull. That's going to implode. Because there's no way to, equalize the pressure inside there, and it's going to get messy.
Not that quickly, anyway. And the lights die. They leave, they die. I guess they don't like pressure either.
Under pressure. Boom, 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 boom.
Reminds me of the Futurama joke. It's like, how many atmospheres can they withstand? Well, they live in space, so anywhere between 0 and 1.
Yes. While they were going under the ocean.
Okay, the lights. This is it. The lights are gone. They make a mild note about how she's going to be in there for several hours because the bends. So at least there's that. They don't want to give her nitrogen poisoning.
Yes, because that would suck.
Later, they set course back to Memory Alpha for Mira to continue her work, and Spock, McCoy, Scotty, and Kirk all hang out, and they all go, yeah, she is great. And Kirk goes, oh my god, they all agree on something. Haha.
Holy smokes, we must be getting near to the end of the series if that's true. Holy crap.
This is the first time they've all been horny with the same person at the same time.
Even Spock said on it, holy smokes.
Hey, that's all. That's it.
That's the end.
We're done. It's all. She's never shows up again. Guess there's a novel where exactly the same thing happens on Memory Alpha again, and then the crew show up and do something, and then that was all. And that was it, and they're done.
Yeah. Well, I do kind of have to feel kind of bad for Mira, because she's going down to Memory Alpha, and then the Enterprise, I'm guessing, is just going to leave.
Yeah, have fun with the dead bodies.
Yes. So there's like, hundreds, perhaps thousands of people down there that all died, and their bodies are just going to be littered around while you're supposed to be, I guess, fixing the system?
Yeah, you're good, right? Fine.
Yeah. Maybe this is a time to go and get a whole, like, team to work on this thing all at once here. Not just one lady. But, budget cuts.
So this is so sparse. We've both talked about how this is so sparse. There's like a couple of weirdly tangential things that we can maybe bring up. Mine was off-site data backups.
Oh, okay. Let's start there.
Because they lose the whole frickin' library. And it's interesting that it is kind of interesting, I guess partially because of the space thing, but they have the idea that they can transmit data from like the ship to the planet, but not that they could store data in more than one place at once or network it or, have a distributed system in any way. It's just like, here's where all of our information is on this one big computer.
Even on this one particular, planetoid, you could have like several different sites like buried under the planet's surface. And, be generally shielded from anything that could be trying to like, laser it or something like that.
Yeah. So here's the rules, because I've known a few people, at least one of whom has worked in like various computer fields for like 15 years, including computer security. So multiple backups that are like, you have like a secure like home backup that you just back up basically every day if you can. I have Time Machine because I use a Mac, but apparently that's bad, but it's not very good because of their weird proprietary software, but it's something. So you have like a local backup that you back up every day. You have a long-term backup for your like other stuff that you back up every couple months or so, or maybe only store super important documents if you don't use your computer for a lot of like actual work stuff. That you keep backed up in like two places so that you have a hard copy at home, and you put a hard copy somewhere else that's not at your home.
So if your house like gets flooded or attacked by kaiju, then you're still going to have that secondary backup.
Mm-hmm. You can use cloud backups, which a lot of people use. If you use cloud backups, you are beholden to whether or not that company is going to choose to honor their agreements to keep a cloud backup for you. So don't rely on that. And copy your entire hard drive every now and again. Be on a schedule. Copy your whole hard drive. Switch your old off-site copied hard drive with your new hard copied hard drive. If you have friends, like right now that's difficult because we're not supposed to touch each other, but if you have friends, like do a hard drive swap. Like, every month I'll come over and take your hard drive and you take my hard drive. But password and protect and encrypt your backup hard drives because, that's all your information. And someone can just plug into that.
How about a scheme where we like have dead drops and things like that, where we aren't actually meeting in person, but we're going to be putting hard drives in a box and someone comes by later and picks it up?
Yeah, that's what those tiny libraries are for.
Yeah. Except for hard drives as opposed to books.
So anyway, off-site backups. Maybe that's what the Enterprise was there to do. They were just going to off-site backup.
That actually kind of makes sense, because the Enterprise like has a kind of badass computer. Maybe not like all knowledge of all people sort of level computer, but maybe like essential things they'd be.
And it's not. I still love. This is something that I've always found fascinating about sci-fi from the 50s to the 70s. It's just before the transistor crossover became very public and like computer miniaturization started its exponential growth to what we have now. They like had this thing that like, well, computers are just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's like a hard limit to how much space you can take up with a computer. So like that's going to be the main limiting factor of space travel, is how big of a computer you have to bring with you on the ship.
Even like for the next generation, the schematics for the Enterprise D has like the computer is like the size of a building.
Yeah, and even that for the like 80s, they knew that they could get the computers smaller. They just never really imagined how.
Yes. Well, they're going to be smaller, but we're just going to also have more computers, so we'll make it bigger too.
Yeah, instead of now, I think we've gotten to a lot of things where you still have large computers for like visual spectacle in sci-fi TV and movies. Like a lot of the stuff is like, well, a quantum computer is probably doesn't even exist in this dimension, so be as big as you want.
Now, I have been, around a like legit like hardcore data processing supercomputer before. That was pretty neat. But that's sort of a specialized sort of device that isn't really there for data storage because that's what servers are for. But actual hard numbers processing and things like that. And that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It was physically large, but it was also like this thing has like 100,000 cores. You need to have so many actual physical processors in order to make that up. And the miniaturization is making the processors smaller, more efficient over time. But still, if you're going to have this many cores for this many threads of simultaneous data processing, then you're going to have different sort of cards which each one of these on is. So that's something.
Well, the thing with that is like you have to have individual cards with however many billions umpty cores on them, which that would probably take up about the size of a couple suitcases or shoebox, depending on what you're dealing with. But we have the heat distribution issue still, which you can't pack them as close together as you would like for efficiency.
Indeed. In fact, the building where this was set up, the air conditioning unit was larger than the computer itself. So
they had that thing Microsoft did a bit ago where they like sunk a data center to the bottom of the ocean so it would stay cold.
Nice.
But they have, if you're just talking about storage, which you probably wouldn't need a bunch of processing power for something like this library, because it's just storage and recall.
Physical storage, so hard drives of various sorts.
Yeah, and I forget where. There's somewhere that's one of the like big evil corporate data centers that stores all of our internet information. It's big. It's a few warehouses. It's like the size of like a medium-sized, Hollywood backlot with sets and stuff. And that's however many zettabytes of data that is basically storing all knowledge on Earth.
Everything we've ever put on the internet is there.
And
including that thing, the one.
And that's big. It's not planet big. It's like
nope.
It's like industrial big.
Yeah, and humans produce a lot of like superfluous information, to be honest. And so if you were sort of to cut it down to like the essential items, just all the written, words of, fiction and nonfiction, let's say, as well as like, literary, textbooks, as well as that. That's like a small fraction compared to all the other crap we've sort of put together out there.
And a more interesting thing that they don't go into, but would have been kind of fascinating, is like, how do you even database and network and make all information in the whole of like several planets worth of history and writing and science accessible in any usable fashion?
It's going to be a little bit of a organizing nightmare, to be honest.
My friend and I made up a thing.
How do you search it?
Ages ago that was like the funnest Dungeons and Dragons item I've ever seen, and I want to use it in the game again. It was called The Little Big Book of Everything. And
nice.
It was a book that had everything in it, but it was a book that had everything in it. So it was practically useless because you were just as likely to find the key to defeating the most evil villain in history is this one like thimble you can find on a mountaintop somewhere, or that Mrs. Gavin down the street had a sick cat last Tuesday.
And depending on what your adventure is about, either one of these could be very important or not important.
Mm-hmm. That was fun.
That's kind of glorious. I like it. But I guess this does get kind of close to that thing I, we poked at a little bit of the intro there. There is, things like Wikipedia and Memory Alpha where, like the real world version of it, where there is, where we have this sort of centralized database of information that people are contributing to, as opposed to just like the Federation or all information or the corporate secrets or whatever, something that people are actually coming together and sort of putting together in order to sort of, provide a public information service in a way. And
yeah, the Wikipedia thing is just fascinating. I mean, it's kind of, I have a Wikipedia page open that I stare at while we're recording these episodes like every week because I just put the Wikipedia for that episode up to refer to.
Yeah, in case I forget something, or there's like, oh yeah, there's was one thing sort of. So let's click on a link real quick while we're thinking about things.
Yeah, and I've been hearing some things recently. They've been writing some articles about this, and there were some interviews not too long ago. And it's kind of fascinating because I am, just in the generation that's old enough to have been encountering Wikipedia when I had to start researching stuff in college. And you weren't allowed to for ages.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, you can't rely on that. It's not a vetted source. And like, well, how about the stuff they link to? I don't know about that either.
Yeah, because you had two things there. You had, like, one, no one was sure about this thing. It was a new experiment of distributed data gathering. Because the entire idea of Wikipedia is that if you have enough people editing the information all of the time, it will reach kind of the general consensus of reality.
Yes. And, you do have to sort of keep an eye on things, because there are going to be instances where, suddenly, some comedian decides to claim they, saved all African elephants or something like that. But, and that will suddenly be on the Wikipedia, or, for elephants. But, if you, as long as you have some sort of, outside, sort of watchdog making sure, momentary spikes like that don't suddenly create a whole new reality, as sort of depicted on by the wiki there. You can very, very reliably seek out that sort of good end state, which I think is kind of cool. It's like we're all working together to make something better.
Yeah, and they've done kind of, not exactly experiments, but they've been able to look at it as its own experiment when something gets changed to either a blatant untruth or something people aren't sure about. It gets changed back almost immediately because you've gotten enough people using this to change it over and over and over. And I also saw this interesting thing about this, that Wikipedia is kind of this representation of distributed information in the internet age that, like, kind of throws into stark relief the ways that the internet works so much differently from how we expect other things to function, because this is a service that so many people do for free, and it's the only way it could work, because you couldn't employ enough people to keep an eye on everything on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I know people who sort of keep an eye on some selection of articles that they are actually experts on, and they sort of are, volunteering their time to make sure that something that they care about is not being misrepresented by someone who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. And that's kind of cool.
And they didn't specify what they put into the library on Memory Alpha in the episode, but the reason that when we were in college, professors didn't want you using Wikipedia, apart from it being new, is there's this idea that knowledge has to go down.
Has to come on high. Has to be filtered through the experts, and it has to be coming through their publications, their textbooks that they've written that you have to pay for, and all those other sort of sites, and sources there. So it's very much a one-way sort of street.
Yeah, I literally had a professor explain it to the class this way, that Wikipedia is lateral information from one peer to another. And what you need is hierarchical information from an expert that's being filtered down to you, who is the non-expert.
But what if the expert was by our side, laterally?
Well, it can't be a very good expert.
Why not? But I will say that as far as professional science, tests and things like that go, the more lateral sort of view is slowly taking hold. That there are, because there are, as I said, people I know who watch pages on Wikipedia who are experts in their field that are sort of helping keep that project going. There's also things like the open access movement that are like, we're writing all these papers and things like that, and basically anyone who, in order for someone to see our research, someone's getting charged twice here. Us for getting it published because we have to pay the company to publish our data, or our papers and things like that, and then they sell that as a product to colleges, universities, and individuals so they could read the papers. So how about we just make our research free for everybody to see?
Especially since so much research receives government grants, like taxpayers should be able to read that stuff that, is being paid for with tax money.
Yeah, indeed. And even for those who do put papers through the traditional publishing system, more and more there's preprint sort of archives and things like that, like the archive with an X in the middle there, where folks publish certain draft versions of their papers to sort of get a draft version of what they're going to be publishing out there sooner rather than later, as well as to sort of get feedback from the larger community as opposed to through the review process that the publisher is going to use. Because sometimes the publishers know who to talk to as far as getting a certain paper reviewed. Sometimes they know who to talk to and they can't get that person to review it. And sometimes they don't know who to talk to. And so you can have very hit or miss as far as the review process for getting your actual paper, looked at there. So having a few more eyes is actually a good thing, because you could have people come to you and say, you have a cool idea here, but maybe you should think about this before you push it on to the next step of publication. And that can make the science a lot better, because there's a lot more opportunity for discussion before it hits that sort of finalized stage.
Yeah, there's so many, you have the distributed eyes, which gives you a more varied number and amount of people looking at things. The diversity in science is pretty crummy. So having a more diverse panel looking at everything you're doing is very helpful. And even something like Wikipedia that isn't claiming to be all scientific research, you can just get information about anything. Because stuff that people wouldn't bother to research. Or
there are articles about people I know, and they're not super noteworthy, but I guess they're noteworthy enough. They have articles written about them, but it's it's about them and what their lives are about. It's not. This is the cure to the stubbed toe. It's very much just sort of about that person. It's not research. It's not anything sort of more than that. It's details, the fiddly bits. These little bits of information that are kind of cool to know if you want to know more about a person, subject, or anything else.
Yeah, you're getting more and more, even just distributed science. I look at a site a lot called iNaturalist, which is a new citizen science project that's trying to catalog a lot of natural biology stuff. There's a birding site that anyone who likes birding, when you're allowed to go outside again, should use, called eBird, that I put stuff on that is basically that. Scientists use this all the time to track migration patterns and other things, because you just have so many people looking at so many animals.
Weirdly enough, reminds me about earthquake tracking through Twitter.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird things that we've gotten to just from having so many eyes on the ground.
Human beings are a great sensor suite if you have enough of them.
And I was reading a book, I feel like we need to bring this back into our normal depressing realm that we always do. But well, I've been reading a book that basically says that the way that we think of modern economics in America, which is very important because it is how we are deciding basically all of our political and policy decisions, is based on this economic theory. It kind of boils down to this informed self-interest idea that if people, rational self-actors, if someone is rational and has enough information and is motivated by making money, they will do the obvious rational thing that would make them the most money, and therefore we can predict their behavior, and everything will turn out great because we're all just trying to optimize for this one thing, and since we're all trying to optimize it for ourselves, everyone's going to get it.
That's a bit of an assumption there,
but that's the core assumption.
Kind of how the base law is.
But according to this theory, Wikipedia doesn't exist.
Yep. Because it's basically not something that people are making money off of.
Yeah, the creators aren't really making money off of this thing. They could go into the tech space. They could make this a Silicon Valley Fortune whatever company, get a bunch of venture capital dollars thrown at them, and become Silicon Valley billionaires. But they don't. They manage this little website that they think is important, and literally millions of people keep it updated for free, because as we've seen with the like moderation crises you have on, you know, like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, you can't pay enough people to look at all the things going on at once. But if you distribute it this way, it all kind of works itself out.
Yeah, it's almost like people don't work as expected onto this model. Maybe we should update our model of how the world
I don't think what's easier to do is to like try to explain how this behavior actually does fit into the model in some sort of weird half-made up way that doesn't really explain things but gets people to be quiet enough that I still can write papers and get paid.
Oh no, that seems like a cop-out to me. You know, some of this does remind me of another thing we can maybe touch upon real quick. That's maybe also a little depressing in some aspects, but yeah, you could have all this cool Wikipedia stuff here and free information out on these websites, but what if you couldn't actually access them or efficiently access them?
And then you'd have a hierarchy of who could get free information based on something, probably money, that I'm sure is completely fair and right and proper.
Yeah, you know, let's say if, you know, your ISP had a bundle where in order to even get Wikipedia, you had to pay extra. You know, they're not giving the money to Wikipedia, they're just pocketing it for themselves, but...
Oh, they wouldn't do that because that's just fair practices, and no internet company would be that unfair to people.
And they would surely not try to, I don't know, lobby for, you know, the end of net neutrality in order to be able to do crap like that,
well,
would
you
they?
know, just because the internet's not neutral doesn't mean you can't have fidget spinners, which is the most important thing.
Fidget spinners. The end-all, be-all of all civilization. Ha-ha!
Anyway, I'm being glib, but yeah, there's been a decided push by internet companies to end net neutrality, which is the idea that all websites have to be given equal bandwidth regardless of what they are. And there's a push going to allow individual ISPs, or the people that you buy your internet from, to artificially slow down or speed up websites based entirely on their arbitrary whims, which is going to lead inevitably to them charging extra to people who want to be able to access certain popular web pages. Of course, they claim they would never do this, and laws are just stifling innovation or whatever, some such, but this is literally their plan, and they've been fairly open about it.
Yes. So, you know, it would either be directly charging the consumer to have different sort of tiers of internet with, you know, these websites will load for 100% of the time, these other ones maybe not. Or if you buy the bigger plan and have, you know, you can get everything. Or alternatively, they'll go to the companies that own the websites and say, hey, Amazon, you have a lot of money. We'll make sure that your website loads, 100% of the time very quickly if you pay us some percentage of the sales you make. And the small company over there that no one's ever heard of that still also has an internet presence trying to make it big by selling things online. Yeah, we're going to charge you a higher percentage because we don't think there's going to be any people actually going to your website. So in order for us to even allow people to go to your website, we want to bear a cut. And so pretty soon it's going to be encouraging this sort of monopoly sort of situation, which is already a major problem right now as far as our current economic situation is. And it's just going to make things worse, and things are going to cost more for the end consumer.
Yeah, it may or may not increase individual internet prices, which, you know, is already a problem because the internet companies can basically do whatever they want with their de facto monopolies that legally aren't monopolies. But it will, even if you, on the user end, don't actually see a measurable price increase, it will mean that small platforms will cease to be, because only large companies that already have an established presence will be able to afford what the internet companies are charging them to be able to get their website seen by people.
And this also has, you know, things, can be filtering quite awfully into certain areas about freedom of speech in general. Like, oh, here's, you know, the news websites that, have had a bad article about this ISP or the company there, that owns them. And so suddenly this website is not accessible for a while. And, oh yes, we have the right to restrict anyone who does not pay us this fee or something like that. And they haven't, so we have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just there's just so much power being sort of grabbed by these companies and they by basically fighting back net neutrality and things like that. That it's just kind of ridiculous. Like, okay, obviously, like so much of all the excuses you're giving us to get there are kind of bullshit in the first place, but this is your end product. This is the obvious thing you'll be able to do, and you have not even attempted to tell us why that's bad. You're just sort of ignoring our counterclaim for what you're trying to get here.
Well, I had this interesting story on NPR the other day talking about how the stark relief of our horrible internet in the United States has been thrown up by everyone suddenly having to do everything from home online. And the internet companies are kind of starting to get called out a little bit because they took a bunch of government money and had a bunch of laws made saying the government wouldn't compete with them or build our own, better infrastructure in exchange for them doing a bunch of stuff to, spread the internet around. And they didn't.
Yep. It's like, wait a moment. The internet in this part of the country just kind of sucks. This area, this city, this county,
so
this
basically,
town.
It's kind of discovering that a bunch of these companies took a bunch of government money to do something and then never did it, which is not, that tends to get one into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, though with the current administration, who knows how much trouble they'll actually get
probably
into.
not much, though. Thankfully, that kind of budgetary stuff isn't 100% controlled by the executive.
But still, there's, it's getting that sort of, payoff cut even is kind of difficult. Because, there's a lot of interest and lobbying and all that.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's literally laws that have been put into place through internet lobbying that make it illegal for either the government, the city, or even other companies to build up their own internet infrastructure.
Also, zoom.
So now we've managed to turn the most boring episode of the original series into depressing capitalism. But so what do you expect from us? The world is like, I don't know where things are going to be when this episode comes out in like 4 weeks, but like right now, like everything's on fire.
Yeah. And just in case there's any confusion about, where we stand, Black Lives Matter.
Very much so.
Just want to put that out there so there's no confusion. It's kind of all I had to talk about here.
Yeah, that was like, that's the entire episode.
Yeah, and it was not really anything about what happened in the episode.
No, here's an idea. Libraries. They're fun and good. Go support your library. Cool. They're in trouble.
Yes. Support your local library. It'll do you and the community good in the long run.
Did you know the library has Netflix? Like, for free? You get to stream. You can stream movies and things from the library without having to pay them. And companies like Netflix don't want you to know this so that you'll keep paying them.
So, go to the library, guys. And make sure to wear your mask, though.
Also, audiobooks. Like, right now, a bunch of books are on back order because, everyone's reading digital books at home. But, you can get a bunch of stuff for free from the library because you pay taxes and they go to the library to give you free stuff.
Yay! Oh, I did have one other sort of, I guess, goofy thing that I could mention.
Why not?
So Mira, this is her first time in space,
apparently,
right?
Or at least deep space.
And so she's going out there. And she is the only one that's affected by this weirdness. Everyone else on the ship is fine. So maybe the fact that everyone else has already run into weird mind control aliens of various sorts already has made them immune to that sort of thing.
Locked off their minds.
Yes. Or at least made them resistant to this sort of mind control.
Like I was gonna say that they're all thinking of their Pazak game over and over, but I don't know how long it's been since anyone who would listen to this show has played Knights of the Old Republic 2.
I have that. I've not played it. I should get around to doing that.
It's weird. It's actually kind of bad because they didn't finish the story.
Yeah, I kind of got that impression from what people say. So yeah. But anywho. Star Wars, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting there. You can't talk about sci-fi through the 70s without it. So
true. Yeah, we should maybe think about our future here as far as that sort of stuff goes.
Oh yeah, I have a plan that I haven't told anyone, and I keep in my head, so it'll be a surprise.
Do I know this plan?
I don't think so, unless you're somehow psychic and you never told me.
No, not yet. Sometimes I can see the future, and that's kind of weird.
See, I'm horrible to work with.
I might just have a weird connection to some lights glowing in space, though, so I'm not sure if it's
You're prescient about what this very specific thing does. You know what that one squirrel is going to do. That squirrel.
Yes. It's gonna look at me and then run up the tree. There it goes.
Oh my god, he's psychic.
I think we're going off to the end here.
I'm sure there'll be an episode about invasive species where we can talk about squirrels. So, actually, that was the triple episode. Oh well. I think now it's time for the Galaxy's favorite game show. Woo!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the game show portion of the show. How are you feeling tonight, everybody? Woo! Yeah. We're surviving the apocalypse here. That's fine, but we're gonna keep giving out prizes all the same. We're gonna give out a few things because we got some various contestants here who've been scoring up some mad points today. Our first prize is the TV Love Story prize, which goes to Scotty, of course, because golly gee, he's in love again and acting like he's 14 once more. What does he win, Gepwin?
Scotty, and this might be a good idea for the crew in general, you know that sour apple spray that you use to keep dogs off of things? Like, we just spray down everything with that so that they can stop trying to, like, be horny at each other and do the jobs.
I think that's a good idea. My suggestion might have been to go back to that one planet from Shore Leave, because I'm pretty sure they all got laid on that one. But yeah, this apple spray is probably a good stopgap in the meantime.
Yeah, I could keep them occupied for a minute.
Our second prize is the Hard Drive Brain Prize, which goes to Lieutenant Mira Romaine for kind of having her head ready to be reformatted so the space ghost can go live inside her. What does she win, Gepwin?
Mira wins more like just a firewall or something. Like, there's enough of these mind control aliens. They don't even sort of talk about having any way to try to keep your mind from being read, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. But it does lead to some just randomness about whether or not it works.
Wasn't it the Foundation series where they had some sort of devices where they could block mind powers?
Probably. There's lots of those.
Anyway, our final prize today is the Space Ghost Prize. I probably should have come up with this prize a lot sooner, but it's our newest prize coming in this episode. It goes to the Zetar, or the Zetars, the weird glowy light people. They are the flashy light beings, as they are basically just a bunch of ghosts who are decided to go in hot space and try to possess people. What do they win, Gepwin?
Alright, everybody needs to win some ghost story books and go watch The Haunting of Hill House, like how to do ghosts right, because, you know, just like aliens, ghosts are supposed to be a metaphor for something. So stop, be a metaphor for something. Don't just be there.
So, I think I'm tempted to reference some Babylon 5, but maybe I'll do that after the segment here. Gepin, take us away.
Alright, thank you all for joining us here, surviving the apocalypse, or not, and becoming weird ghost light colony things.
Yes, a hive mind of flashy lights.
And thank you all for joining us on the Galaxy's favorite game show!
So in Babylon 5, there's one episode where Londo Mollari says if you got all the Narn together and had them hate, it would manifest and reach out across space and destroy Centauri Prime, his homeworld. And so that's what I was thinking.
Isn't that how the orcs in Warhammer work?
Maybe.
There's just enough of them around that their collected belief in a thing manifests it into being?
That could be a problem, yeah.
Seen that happen in a lot of different things, actually. We recognize that collective visualization and action works. We just want to keep people from doing it.
It's almost like, you know, getting together and teaming up with some folks can make us more powerful as a group.
Yeah, there's nothing happening recently that we could apply that to. Really hope something's come of it by now, and this episode
Yeah, me
is
too.
becoming very irrelevant by the time this comes out, but I have doubts, so,
There is a little movement here or there, but a lot more needs to change.
I hope that the fight has been kept up and or been successful.
Yes, and if it isn't successful yet, you can go out there and raise some hell, folks.
If you don't want to go outside, there's plenty of things that you can do inside. Write people, donate to things.
There's bail funds for to helping out those that are being specifically targeted out in the streets, and there's even like whole organizations that are trying to help keep people organized and safe and all that. And so you can go help them out if you got some dollars to toss out. Also, just listen to people and help spread stories and news about what's going on. And if there is that one kind of racist uncle out there that is bothering you on Facebook, feel free to call them out. Or if you aren't in a position to do that yourself, poke one of your friends that they don't know to help do that for you. Because, sometimes, I know family situations can be complicated, but this crap needs to be confronted. So, yeah. So keep up the good work, everybody.
Just to add, don't be too disappointed when they don't listen, because they probably won't. Still important.
Yeah, so keep rolling, folks.
Now we're done with however much of that didn't get cut for relevance later on when I'm editing this in 6 weeks. So this was episode 79, and long-term listeners will know that our 10th episode anniversaries mean something.
What does that mean, Gapwood?
It means that I don't have to write the script this week.
Woot! Holy smokes, that means it's my turn.
Yeah, it's your turn to pick a random movie that we may or may not have heard of.
Well, I think I was narrowing it down between a few things, and it's not going to be District 9 because you said you didn't much care for that one. Tank Girl, I was very tempted to go with, and so it was down to two options, and so it was kind of hard choice between those two options. But I think I did promise to for sure have a good movie, and one of them is definitely a good movie, and the other one's more of a weird movie that I also really like. But anyway, I wouldn't necessarily say it's good. So we're going to be doing Dark City next week.
Dark City is an absolute sci-fi noir classic. I have seen this one before. It's been one of my kind of long-term sci-fi favorites since college.
Yeah, same here. It's a movie that is not a period piece, but it's a movie that is about... It takes place in periods, you could say.
Yeah, it's not a period piece, but it is a noir piece that is taking all of the trappings and, scenery and everything of the noir genre and using it and the kind of tropes of that to explore some interesting science fiction themes.
Yes. So it's glorious. I'd recommend giving it a watch before next week if you can. If not, I guess just tune in for next week and have some fun as we roll through that.
Yeah, spoiler free on there. It has my favorite way that you get the good guy to do stuff in the end of any movie. It makes so much sense for the narrative that they've given out.
Okay, so all the pieces actually do come together for this to make sense. Excellent.
Yeah, it's great. And we will talk about that one next week on Watches of Tomorrow.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, sleep. You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.